Coming up on show 739, the VW ID.3 promises the industry's best heads-up display. Plus, we're talking about Germany's big EV market share in March, how to make sure your EV is okay during a stay at home. The brand new Audi e-tron Sportback is reviewed by Auto Express. We'll see what they said about that, and 4,000 VW e-Golf orders in Germany in 1 month. Plus, we're talking about your answers to question of the week this week. Well, good morning, good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the show. Sunday, 5th of April, Martyn Lee here. I go through every EV story, so you don't have to. If you haven't checked out the live YouTube show that we are doing, it's called EV Lounge Live. It's with my buddies, Craig and Nick, and it's a live show on a Sunday night during this shutdown period of staying at home and bringing together the EV community. Sundays at 7 p.m. UK, 2 p.m. Eastern, and if you want to join us, if you missed the show for Sunday, join us for the next show. We will be back live talking to you in the YouTube chat and streaming live as well, answering your questions. Thank you as always to myev.com for helping make this show. MyEV, if you haven't checked it out, is a great marketplace. Wish we had it here. It's in the USA and it connects buyers and sellers, and it will also teach you a lot about EVs. Check them out. So Germany just hit a record 9.2% EV market share. That was in March. We call it 10%? Go on then. Europe's largest auto market in Germany hit an all-time record for plug-in EVs in March, 9.2%. We'll call it 10. The Tesla Model 3 was the best-selling full electric vehicle with 1,490. Let's call it 1,500. Just ahead of the Renault Zoe. Overall, the auto market fell by 38% year-on-year, says CleanTechnica. And Max Holland writes that the German EV market was balanced between plug-in hybrids and full battery electric vehicles. Notably, plug-in vehicles overtook the now outdated plugless technology for the first time. Germany's 37.7% fall in March was tough for the auto industry, but not as bad as those countries that have had COVID-19, had it worse earlier. Spain down 69%, France down 72%, Italy down 85%, and all of those countries, sorry for my phone pinging in the background, how unprofessional, all of those countries, certainly as of today, are seeing a, what they call flattening of the curve. So they're not out of the woods yet, but providing a glimmer of hope at least, and certainly some respite for the healthcare professionals that are looking after the poorly in those countries. If you are staying at home, if you are quarantined, if you are ill and self-isolating, I do hope you are okay. Our Prime Minister has been taken into hospital this evening. They say just for precautionary checks, which is obviously worrying because, any top politician, wherever they are in the world, have the world's finest healthcare where they live, like at Downing Street. That would be, it's not as if they haven't got, for things like terror attacks, they're going to have pretty advanced medical facilities on site, same as the White House would. And so for him to be transferred, they're insisting it's just for tests, but, fingers crossed that he just needs maybe some oxygen or some scans that can't be done there. But anyway, talking about COVID-19, if you are staying at home, if you are doing that to protect lives, and you have an EV, in a quite serious way, how should you leave your electric car? It's something that it's never crossed my mind, but Kyle at Out of Spec Motoring, which is a great YouTube channel, by the way, has made a video on tips to keep your EV healthy while it sits for an extended period of time. Now, Kyle at Out of Spec Motoring says that the phantom drain is a real thing, and he explains it in much more detail than I can possibly do here, but I'll pop a link in the show notes to the video. Understanding it is important for EV drivers. He talks about, ideally, keeping your car between 30 and 50% state of charge if you are going to store it for a long period of time, opening the car, maybe letting the interior breathe, make sure there's no old food and anything else suspect inside, even putting air in the tyres. But most importantly, the lithium-ion battery, trying to keep it around 30 to 50% is his recommendation. Now, I did reveal last week on our YouTube show on Sunday night, EV Lounge Live, when I was asked that my car is currently sitting at 100%. Oopsie. Now, I did try and defend myself and point out the Renault Zoe has a top buffer, so 100 isn't really 100 like in a Tesla, but the boys were having none of it. I took some stick. I'm not meant to be leaving my car this fully charged. If I've got one get-out clause, Well, the battery's leased. I own the rest of the car, but I lease the battery from Renault. So if I'm doing any harm... I mean, there's no guidance. Like, Renault haven't written to me to say don't store it 100%. So, we have driven it, by the way, earlier today. And we will drive it some more over the next couple of days when we do our 1 or 2 grocery runs. And then we'll try and leave it around 50%. I'll pop a link to Kyle's video if you want to know more. Maybe a bit of inspiration there for question of the week, and now a new one as well. Let's get on to the Audi e-tron Sportback. There's 2 variants. Well, there were 2 variants of the Audi e-tron, the 50 and the 55. Well, now there's 4, because the e-tron comes in Sportback. Guys, if you didn't think that the SUV crossover shape was enough of a niche, now there's a coupe SUV style. Basically, you lose a bit of headroom in the back, but it swoops down at the back. That's your style that you like. A swoopy rear end. I mean, look, it's a beautiful car inside and out. And regular listeners of the podcast have heard me say being inside the Audi e-tron is the nicest EV to be inside. Complaint letters to the usual place for those that don't agree with me. It is just a premium German luxury car, and it happens to be electric. Anyway, the Sportback Audi e-tron mirrors that of the regular e-tron, says Auto Express. 2 versions available. There's the 50, which is not 50 kilowatt hours, it's 71 kilowatt hours, with 217 miles of range and 309 brake horsepower. And then there's the 55, which is also nothing to do with 55. It's 95 kilowatt hours battery, 278 miles of range, 404 brake horsepower, says Auto Express. But what does their reviewer think of the car? Well, he says one thing doesn't change, regardless of the version, is the compromise you make with the Sportback. It's 4.9 metres long like the regular model, but 20 millimetres less headroom in the back, along with overall luggage capacity dropping by 45 litres because of the sloping roofline. And Auto Express goes on to say, speaking of long drives, because that's a big part of the article, they are reasonably feasible because the e-tron's rapid charging capability. They say that hooked onto a 150 kilowatt charger, the battery's topped up to 80% in 30 minutes. The only trouble is, there are less than 900 of them in the UK. You're not kidding. There's about 20. I'm not quite sure. That's got to be a typo. The reviewer saying that there is less than 900 150 kilowatt chargers. Yeah, that's the understatement of the year. Actually, I thought there was about 10 or 15. Actually, I had a look on ZapMap earlier, and I think ZapMap is probably just about the right place to find those stats. I find them to be reliable all of the time, and there's just over 20 150 kilowatts plus fast chargers. There are sites with either one. Some of the Polar, BP Charge Master Polar sites have one. Some of them have 2. Some of the Ionities have 4. Is that enough to call it a hub? But even if you think, well, there's like 25 sites, probably 50 plugs. I should go and count them, shouldn't I? That's a long way off of 900. It's been bugging me ever since I read this article. What have they looked at to get to that stat? Because it's not like they've confused it with 100 kilowatt chargers. Not many of those either. So maybe I'll email them and ask, just so I can sleep at night. I know, I'm sad. If you want to check out Auto Express, I'll pop a link in the show notes. But actually, you know what? Why don't you buy the magazine? If you are out and about doing your one weekly shop and you're looking for some things to read during stay at home, buy a good old-fashioned magazine. I love magazines. Get my weekly Auto Sports magazine. Fabulous. Love it. My wife thinks I'm very old-fashioned by not reading Apple News on the iPad. But you know what I just love? It's not the smell of the paper. It's like something tactile. And okay, there are some that live in the downstairs toilet, which she might not frequent. Anyway, got a little too graphic there for a second, didn't I? I like something to read. Let's talk about the VW e-Golf. In Germany, some big orders, actually. People in Germany, we talked about the sales stats at the beginning of the show. These are unofficial figures, by the way, but those in Germany wanting the e-Golf seem to be wanting it more than ever before. There's an industry analyst I follow on Twitter called Matthias Schmidt, and he says that the number of orders for the old-fashioned e-Golf, I know what he means because it's not the ID.3, is now, and he's quoting internal, unofficial sources, 4,000 new orders placed in the month of March. 4,000 orders placed. I don't know when they'll be delivered. But that's a huge amount of orders placed for a car which is essentially discontinued. Because they discontinued the e-Golf last year with news of the ID.3 arriving this summer. And then the following news is that they're going to carry on making the e-Golf until almost the end of this year. Is that because they secretly know the ID.3 will not be delivered on time? As I mentioned on the YouTube show earlier on, there is somebody who I follow on Twitter, Jürgen Stackman, who is a member of the board of management. And he was sometime earlier this week saying, we will deliver it on time, the ID.3. So you have to take the man at his word. Now, the Volkswagen ID.3 may have encountered some software issues as it just was about to start shipping. But even so, it's arguably still worth the wait because they claim to have one of the most advanced pieces of tech, not just in an EV, but on the road. It's an advanced head-up display system. And I've seen this. Mostly the American articles I've read about this call it heads-up display. Now, I would call it a head-up display. Which one is it? Vote now. I don't know. Anyway, we'll call it a head-up display. They say they've got the most sophisticated one. There's been a short promo video released online. And according to Motor1.com, they said that they're taking it with a grain of salt because VW says what it has shown so far is a near production version of the system that will be available for the ID.3, but they say the augmented reality head-up display projects the navigation direction straight into the traffic situation ahead as you are driving, looking out the windscreen. So, what it does is show you the arrows. If you need to turn left at the next junction, for instance, it will show you the arrow superimposed on the road ahead of you. So you're looking out of the windscreen, but also it's superimposing an arrow. I've kind of seen this on some phone apps as well, this augmented reality, but it tells you where to turn. Of course, the arrow will move with the road as you're driving towards the junction. Your destination's displayed on the head-up display as well, a lot like you would see in a car game. And it actually says Motor 1. It looks too good. The video they've published looks too much like a computer game. Like they've just made this one video artificially with some graphics software and this isn't reality. I don't know either way. I know you can prove it either way. But Motor 1 says it just looks too good to be true at the moment. If they can get this right, I'll be very, very eager to try it because it's one of those things that if you can keep more eyeballs on the road, it makes for a safer environment for everybody, rather than people looking down at their phone. And yes, people use their phones all the time for sat-nav. And I see it, I do a fair bit of driving. I see people using their phones all the time. And so this would be a big safety improvement. So let's get on to question of the week, should we? Question of the week this week, I was asking you about the ID.3. And I was asking you about how much of a kicking should people give the legacy car makers, not just VW, but for so long, you and I have wanted EVs, for like good EVs for a long time, but for so long, it was just really a handful of people, mainly just Tesla making them. And so many other commentators, even some executives, many of them departed now as well, by the way, said, look, we could make a good EV if we wanted, and when we choose to, we will, and then we'll be showing the rest how it's done. Well, with respect, you haven't really, have you? And of course, the ID.3 is being battered with software problems at the moment, which they are, working night and day, and probably from home as well in Germany at the minute with kind of a coronavirus lockdown. So they need to get this on the road as promised, and we think they will. But how much of a hard time should we give them if they miss that deadline by a month or two, or even if they deliver the cars, but with temporary software? So, thank you for your responses. Had a lot this week, actually, and some really long ones, and I'm sorry that I don't read out all of the, like the one-pagers. Trying to keep the podcast to 20 minutes. I'm cracking on for 15 minutes now, and so I try to give everybody a little bit of recognition for emailing in answers. And I don't always read out the longest ones. I'm sorry, but I do read them all. And I try and respond to, to most people because they're making very, very valid points. So let's crack on. Rajiv Narayan kicks us off. I say we give them the benefit of the doubt. We need all hands on deck and to move towards EVs. My Chevy Bolt had software issues when I bought it, but they've been fixed with software updates. If GM can do it, I'm confident VW can as well. Stefan says neither a pass nor a hammer should be applied. The market will punish and reward legacy automakers for the speed of their transition to EV. Due to poor performance of legacy automakers, Tesla is here to stay. If they keep it up, the big three may refer to Tesla, Rivian, Lucid. Rich Fowler says, I had an immediate reaction to your question about VW. The TLDR version is, don't dogpile on a company that's not doing something legally, ethically or morally wrong at the moment. On the other hand, if VW were to get caught up in more diesel shenanigans, it would be perfectly fair to point out a pattern or practice of bad faith and pile on. But with this story, that isn't the case. This is a case where they've bitten off more than they can chew on the software side, and they're trying to make EVs. But I agree with you, Rich. I think, especially with the news that we brought you earlier about this mega augmented reality superimposed sat-nav system, they have bitten off a lot. No doubt they have the best people in the business, along with all the big car companies, right? They can all pay to attract top talent. They have bitten off a lot, haven't they? Alex McKenna says maybe VW shouldn't have used Windows. They were asking for trouble. Thanks, Alex, for taking the question seriously this week. Peter Sort says, I would not like one of the VW ID.3s that have been sitting in a field for months on end, uncharged. What battery damage has been doing before you even get to it, says Peter. I don't know. I mean, presumably if the battery packs are installed, and I would guess the battery packs are installed because that's how they move the cars. Maybe there's some rudimentary software that actually allows them to drive them, at least. Or maybe they are just going to bolt the battery pack up underneath and connect the orange connector up and the high voltage stuff when it's... I mean, you got a point. I wouldn't want to be leaving any kind of battery of whatever chemistry parked up in a field, either in a cold winter or maybe it's indoors and climate conditioned, but, parked up for a long time. John Hughes says we should treat them as hard as they treated Tesla in the early days when Tesla were having development problems. Roger Starkey says if they came to market quietly, showing respect for those already here, the same respect would be shown to them. If they came in talking the talk with the killer attitudes, well, then they deserve the criticism to match. Yeah, Roger, good point actually, because many of them have brought good EVs to market, like BMW's a good example, and the i3. They just keep making it better and better. i3's a great car, but they have at times talked the talk. VW Group has definitely talked the talk over the years, and also make some really interesting. Like the e-Golf is good, the e-Up is good, the plug-ins that they make. The plug-in Golf GTE and the Passat GTE. Some good tech, but you're right. Peter Mooney says, yes, I do think we should give them a hard time, but only if they put profit ahead of what is right and employ FUD to do it. Yes, fear, uncertainty and doubt. They should be held accountable for their part in climate change. John Fruith says, I say no, we should not go easy on Big Auto. They have given us a misleading and fraudulent song and dance for too long. Their greed has not only cost us billions, polluted our environment, but they've contributed to greatly to our health problems. Tesla has shown that their model, building EVs, is woefully wanting. Not only can they not make a car to compete with a 2012 vintage Tesla in terms of efficiency, they can't even manage their own supply chains because they can't get enough batteries to make enough cars. And now we learn they've got no idea how to match the software to the hardware. John has gone in with both feet on that tackle, and I can see a few people giving him a yellow card for that one. However, see both sides. I can see John's point as well. Barry Wolf says, even though VW is going electric because of its sins, it's good that it's investing billions both on internal projects and the fines they're having to pay to advance EV transport. Rather than criticising it, I'd hope people could offer to help in some way to get the ID.3 on the road. Not that I can program, says Barry, but maybe during the plague as he calls it, those with automotive experience and expertise can offer help. Finally, Leanne, who was actually first to reply, bizarrely, in reverse order. I don't think the manufacturers that are trying to make EVs should be heavily criticised. I do, however, think that companies who refuse to acknowledge the changes to personal transport or update old, outdated soft hybrid technology should be shamed and forced to remove their grossly misleading advertising. Couldn't agree more with you, Leanne. Thank you very much for all of your responses this week. Let's set a brand new question of the week, and I'll read out your answers on next Sunday's show. And here it is, inspired by the story earlier in the show today. If you are staying at home, if you're staying at home and not driving, what condition or state of charge are you leaving your car parked in, and why? Let me know. I need your help. We're going to crowdsource some information this week. What state of charge are you leaving your car at? In the driveway, on the road, in the garage? Are you worried about it? Do you give it a second thought? Have you planned it out meticulously? Let me know. Email me, hello@evnewsdaily.com, or leave a comment on the YouTube show. Well, thank you to 238 patrons of the podcasts, the premium partners of the show, Phil at Electric Future, Brad Crosby, Avid Technology, Brightsmith Group for Clean Tech Talent, Porsche of the Village Cincinnati, and Audi of Cincinnati East, David Allen, my partner of the show, OEM Audio of New Zealand, and evpower.co.nz for your accessories, Paul O'Connor, thank you Paul, tryev.com. When all this is over, I'm sure they'll be getting people back into EVs, Gareth Hamer, also, eMobility Norway. Check them out, eMobilityNorway.com. Bob Boothby, ev-resource.com. And new for this month at partner level, Mia Oppelstrup. And, thank you, Mia. And all of my exec producers, Alan Robson, Alan Shed, Alex Banahini, Alexander Frank, Anders Hove, Andrea Jefferson, Asir Khalid, Ashley Hill, Bjard Fuchstack, Brent Kingsford, Brian Thompson, Brian Weatherall, Bruce Bohannon, Charles Hall, Chris Hopkins, Colin Hennessy, and Cam ZV, Craig Coles, Craig Rogers, Damien Davis, Darren Bird, Darren Feach, Darren Sant from Yorkshire EVs, Dave Jewson, David Barkman, David Finch, David Partington, David Prescott, Derek Riley, and the Dublin EV Owners Club, Don McAllister at screencastsonline.com, Enrico Stefanchillo, Eru Kyun Nyombi, Frederick Rovic, Free Jewel, who's James, Gene Rubin, Gilberto Rosado, Jeff Lowe, Headley Wright, Ian Griffiths, Ian Sear, Jack Oakley, James Storr, Jerry Allison, Jim Duggan, Jim Morris, John Bailey, John C. Solar, and John Lacey of Click Black Video NZ. John, who is Beardy McBeardface at Ken TVs, John Lodell, Juan Gonzalez, Ken Morris, Kevin Madison, Carl Mann, Lars Alliger, Lawrence DeAllen, Lee Brown, Luke Cully, Marcel Lohman, Marcel Ward, Mark Bossett, Marlon Shell, Martin Croft, Dorset Tradesman, Matt Piccioni, Maz Shah, Michael and Luke Turrell, Michael Pastroni, Michael Coffin, Mike Rogers, Mike Winter, Nathan Gore Brown, and Neil E. Roberts from Sussex EVs, Nigel Miles, Northern Explorers, Ohad Aston, Paul Ridings, Paul Stevenson, Perry Simpkins, Pete Glass, Pete Gorton, Peter and D. Roberts at Oxon EVs, Phil Mouchet, Pontus Kinblad, Raj Badwell, Rajiv Narayan, Ralph Jensen, Renee Schneider, Rob Cooling at appledriving.co.uk. Can you imagine that is just a microcosm of the industries that have been affected? I try and think of all the people that have been affected during coronavirus, and like driving instructors, yeah, just another one to add to the list, but a very real story. Like, that's someone who it's a necessity to sit very close to and be in a confined space with someone, so of course you can't be 2 meters away from it. He absolutely is impacted by this, but when it's all over and you're looking for someone to teach you to drive in an electric car, appledriving.co.uk with Rob Hermans, Robert Grace, Robin Tanner, Rupert Mitchell, Sari Kangasoja, Seiki Payne, Stephen Penn, Steve John, Thomas J. Tias, The Plug Seeker, and his YouTube channel, Tim Gutteridge and William Langhorne. If you can leave a review on Apple Podcast, you will be doing me a massive favour because it helps grow the show. And if you want to come and say hi on the social, search EV News Daily. Have a bloomin' wonderful day. I'll catch you tomorrow. And remember, there is no such thing as a self-charging hybrid.